Opera San Jose Talks Pagliacci. Welcome to our little podcast. Today, this is Larry Hancock, and I'm the General Director, and I have with me Maria Natale, who is singing Nedda, and Cooper Nolan, who is singing Canio in Pagliacci. How excited I am to have these people with us. Both of you are having your company debuts.
We sure are.
Yeah, very excited.
It's very exciting. Very exciting.
It's like a whole cast of debuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Role debut for me as well.
And role debut for me, for the whole cast. I think this is our first time doing all of these roles.
That's spectacular.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's spectacular. Well, our public doesn't know anything about you, so I'm going to start by asking you personal questions.
Sure.
Great.
So, Maria.
Yes.
I see you've sung a whole lot of stuff.
I'm getting there, yeah.
No, you've sung a whole lot of stuff. I actually put marks all over your bio so I could say it. You've sung Micaela, you've sung Marguerite in Faust, Fiordiligi, Donna Anna, Countess. I would love to see your Countess.
Countess is a really fun role.
I would love to see. Mimi and Musetta, not surprising. Desdemona in Otello.
That's what I'm currently delving myself into, is Desdemona, because that's a role that I really, really want to sing for a long time.
Did you see the movie with Katia Ricciarelli?
I did not, no.
Well, hunt that down.
I will.
Because you look like her.
I've been told that. We're like two blonde Italians. Doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, so, all right, so we flew through that. But I'd like to know, where are you from? What's your upbringing?
I'm actually from Southern California. I am a California native.
Right.
So I'm not too far from home, which I feel like I'm kind of home, but I'm not. It's very strange. Same weather, at least. I grew up in Orange County. Went to school in San Francisco Conservatory, so I know the northern, the Bay Area very well. And so I kind of feel like I'm back to my old stomping grounds.
Sure you are.
In somewhat of a way. But currently I live right outside New York City right now doing, trying to, do this opera lifestyle.
Exactly, yeah.
It's kind
New
of
York
like
seems
a
to be the
necessity.
mecca
Yeah, absolutely.
for opera singing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, good. Cooper Nolan, where are you from? How'd you grow up?
Originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
So am I from Florida.
Yeah, exactly. And then I did my undergrad. I worked there. I lived there until I was 18, and I went to college in Gainesville. Go Gators.
I almost went to college in Gainesville. I went to Stetson instead.
Mm-hmm. And then, like all opera singers, I moved to New York.
Yeah.
After undergrad, did my graduate work at MSM, and I just moved back from Germany for 3 years. My wife and I were there for 3 years singing opera over there.
We have all these schools in common. I was supposed to go to the Manhattan School.
Funny. I did not know that. I knew about the Stetson, but I didn't know about MSM.
I was on my way to New York. I spent the summer in North Carolina, and I got a frantic telephone call that my mother had broken her back.
Ooh.
And so I had to turn around and go back to Florida. And that wasn't really the case. Mother had not broken her back. She had fractured her coccyx or something.
Yeah.
So it was no great catastrophe, but I lost my chance.
Oh, wow.
Broken coccyx, though. I mean, that's still painful. I mean,
yeah, it's painful. And she was alone, so it was good that I went home. But I should not go to Manhattan School.
I also went to Manhattan School.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Just for a year, but it was great. I liked it a lot.
I didn't like New York at all.
Really?
I love Paris. I like Rome a lot. I like Milan.
Yeah.
London is okay.
Yeah.
But I realized in my time in New York that I would have to live on West End Avenue or Riverside Drive, and I would have to make a lot of money.
Live in a penthouse. Have a driver.
No, didn't need that. It was just, okay, I was standing outside Carnegie Hall looking at the poster while Maria Callas was inside Carnegie Hall giving her farewell recital.
Wow.
I mean...
You're like a boy with his face pressed against the candy store window in New York.
True.
You have to
absolutely.
have money.
You have to have money
you really do.
to do the things you want to.
Or you would just suffer.
Special cultural things. It's not cheap. New York is not a cheap place to experience life.
Yeah.
No, it's not. But oh well, never mind. Let's not rag on about New York City. But as cities go, I like Paris the best. It's just my favorite city. When I go to Paris, I hardly go inside. I just walk the streets.
Yeah.
Paris is beautiful.
It's weird.
No, it's a fantastic city.
I mean, it's a town. They even have a name for people who just wander the streets aimlessly because they have so many of them.
Yeah.
And who else has a name for people who walk the streets? Nobody.
I also find Paris has a sound to it. It's not just the language, but the way people are talking to each other, and it has this hustle and bustle city feel, but this kind of almost...
It still has this feeling of being sedate.
Yes.
And you speak quietly.
Yes.
And I have a goddaughter who lives there. She's not a real goddaughter, but I adopt. It's a way to explain why I'm out with this fabulous blonde bombshell. and I'm an old man, right? So I always introduce her as ma fille, my godchild. And I really like to go there and visit, but she's had to correct me more than one time. So,
yeah.
Hush up.
Just that.
Well, I've noticed, when you're on the metro, it is quiet. And I go there quite often. My husband, his company is based in Paris, so we go quite a bit. But I lived in Rome for over 2 years, and that's like the complete opposite. And that's what I thrive off of, all that craziness.
New York is so alive. I mean, Rome is so alive.
Very alive.
And you don't have to be dressed like you work for Vogue.
No.
Paris is slackening off. Milan is still way dressy.
Yeah.
And Vienna, I think, is the most dressy city in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Of all the places.
You better be dressed in
if you're going to the equivalent of Walmart, you still better look like you're going for a job interview.
Yeah, they just dress there. And when I was at my trips to Milan, I felt like I was the only fat person in all of Milan of any age, sex, or race. I was the only fat person there. And I wasn't all that fat. But I was just, everybody was pencil thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's weird.
And they
These
pasta
personalities. They eat, but they don't eat so much.
No, they don't. They have my husband is from Milan, so everything every meal, it has to be very specific. No food touches each other. It all has there's actually like a little counting system, like of number of grams of pasta that you eat. You only eat a little bit of pasta. There's not all this sauce on everything. Everything's very simple, very clean. They eat little bits throughout the day, and they go to bed pretty hungry, really. Not like a big meal at the end of the day. Usually like a soup.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's not like me.
Yeah.
That's not like me.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Maybe I should move to Italy.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you are working with Chuck Hudson, who also is having a company debut, and I think it's also his first Pagliacci.
Oh, is it?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it was. You would have never known because.
He's so prepared.
He's extremely prepared.
It is so specific and so much information. I mean, he must have spent so much time on this, but it's brilliant in my opinion.
Yeah. You need to set aside time to read his emails. His emails to us about properties, whatever they are. Mm-hmm. You'll get 3 pages.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
It's
they're
remarkable.
And
really.
they come along. I mean, the guy types fast.
He must.
So I'm glad you're having a good time. But I have every time I go into the rehearsal hall, I get this same sense that everybody's just having a good time.
Yeah, we're working hard. We're getting a lot of work done. We're exhausted, but we are definitely having a good time.
You had your first stumble through like at the 4th rehearsal.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone up extremely quickly.
Yeah, and we've the whole opera stage at this point.
The whole opera has been staged.
And tonight is the run through.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Our run throughs are very early because we have to move everything into the theater, and the run through is for the lighting designer more than anybody else.
Yeah.
So the lighting designer has to get in and see who everybody is and what part of the set they're on in order to hang in focus, right?
I actually kind of like having it early because you have more time to then develop your character as and do different things instead of just getting it all staged like right before tech week. Then you're like still trying to maneuver things and you can't put all those nuances in that you would like to.
Yeah, there's not enough time to play as opposed when you're still thinking about where I have to be, when I have to be there.
Absolutely.
Then you can't be the character.
2 days before the show opens, as opposed to once I know your body tells you at some point after you've done it 5 times, somehow even if you don't remember that you're supposed to be at a place, you're there. And then you can just play as the character as opposed to walking over, where am I supposed to be? Where am I supposed to be? And then your whole character's lost for the rest of the show. Because once people see you drop that for 2 seconds,
you're gone.
You're gone. You're gone for the rest of the show.
It takes a really hard time. You could get it back, but it's hard to get it back.
Yeah, it's so much effort to get it back that it's just, if you can put in the effort early to not have to be in a place where you have to do that, it's much better for not only the actor but the audience member.
Precisely. And that's the trick I'm so happy to have such seasoned performers here. But it's the young performers, which we have normally quite a lot of.
Yeah.
They don't understand that they're not performing for each other.
Oh, no.
You can see it in their eyes. I mean, they're concentrating on that person. It's all about that person. They're talking to that person and singing directly into the wings.
Yeah.
And nobody's performing for their colleagues on stage.
Yes.
And that's really hard for people to understand. No, whatever you're doing, you have to have your antenna up for those people out there who bought tickets.
Yeah.
Because it's establishing that relationship that you have to continue to spark along. You can't walk in, make a big opening scene, and then hold them for the night. It's a continual relationship that you have to keep alive all night long.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that, it's not going to work. I'm reading a book of criticism. It's about 3 inches thick. And this guy was a famous critic for, God, I can't remember the name of the magazine. But at any rate, when I was a kid, he was the big guy. And he's just published a gigantic book. And I was reading it in bed this morning. And he was talking about exactly that, about keeping that relationship, that the performer, it's different than a painting, it's different from a novel, it's different from other forms. The performer is the constant engaging factor in what's going on. And to keep that alive between the performer and those observers out there, what are they experiencing? How do you do that? And what it takes. And it started making me start thinking through composers, because there is a distance that can be created also. And I think that's something that we do in opera today with our stage directors, that they create another level of distance between the performer and the audience by putting in a strange time period, by having unexpected things go on, or hanging a giant clock on the back wall in Traviata. Those things interfere with the audience actually participating in the vividness of the emotion.
If you are going to do something like that, then you, like the clock on the wall in Traviata, the singer or actor has to be so magnanimous or so incredible for you to be able to pull that off. And if not, then there's no way you can do it.
That's right, because everybody's constant. I have seen a Fledermaus completely, in a major house, destroyed by the bow on Rosalinda's dress. Because it was a screaming hot pink, and it was wider than her rear end. And when she walked, it bounced.
Yeah, takes you out of the moment.
And she was wearing through the whole the second and third acts. That's what she had on. The opera was destroyed by a bow. Because you couldn't concentrate on anything but her little bouncy butt. Right?
Yeah,
that's all you're seeing.
If you're going to do something that's, especially for a seasoned opera audience, if you're going to do something that's different, you have to make sure that you can justify it quickly, so that the audience isn't focused on the fact that it's different. The audience is focused on the art, not the fact that it's...
Somebody had a clever idea.
Yes, exactly. If you can justify it and get the audience with you within the first 30 seconds of the show, fine. If you can't, you're selling everybody up the river, because the rest of the show, everyone's just justifying the fact that we are in space or whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
it can be done. I've seen great shows.
That abduction on the in Star Trek. Yeah, there was an abduction done near here, and everybody was in Captain Kirk outfits.
Really?
The original Star Trek stuff. Okay, fine, but and some folks liked it.
Yeah,
but there actually is a story in Abduction from the Seraglio.
Yeah,
there really is a story in there. We just did it. I didn't know there was a story in there, frankly. But I got a stage director who did understand that the problem has nothing to do with Belmonte. It's the relationship between Constanza and Pasha Selim. That's the relationship in that show. And he made sure that we understand. He made sure that we understood that she was having a problem because she had given a vow. She was going to do the right thing. She was going to live up to her vow. But we had a great big, tall, handsome, masculine man who was playing the Pasha Selim, who only speaks, which gives him a level of gravitas that nobody else gets to have. He never bursts into song. And of course, she would have some sense of, this is an attractive man, you know, this is good. But I'm going to marry Belmonte, I promise. And she does. But on her face, more than one time, is the regret, the difficulty, the dilemma that she's facing.
Absolutely.
And so there really is something going on in that opera. It's not just silly. And I didn't know that. I thought it was silly.
No, it's almost every opera, every great opera, has relationships that need to be explored for the audience, and you can explore them fresh every time. And you can set those things in any location at any time. And if the relationships don't make sense, the opera doesn't make sense.
Because it's about people.
It's about people.
It's not about scenery.
No.
It's not about costumes.
It's about people.
We did an Elixir of Love here many, many years ago with a very clever set. It was set in San Jose, California at the same time that Elixir is set, but it was in San Jose. And so they had a drop of a black line drawing drop of the city of San Jose as it existed then, seen from Chavez Park, looking north, with little grain of wheat lights, over 2,000 of them, hand applied to the whole thing. So it came on when you needed it on, but the palm trees and the whole thing. But that's all. That was it. The rest of the stage was basically bare. Not at all what we talked about when I hired the designer. Not at all what we talked about. And I was so disappointed that I wasn't getting what I wanted. The director and the designer had made a decision to go a different way. And I was so disappointed. And we're sitting there and we start having the Elixir of Love. And about an hour into it, I said, you can do it in front of a bed sheet.
Oh, absolutely.
You can do it in front of a bed sheet. It just doesn't matter.
Especially that show.
It's just so musically tight. Characters are so well defined, and you get to like everybody. You get to care about everybody, and they all matter to you.
Absolutely.
I have a theory that American audiences are different from European audiences in that we Americans need a hero. We need a clear hero. And in San Jose, I think that's very well manifest. And you can see it in operas like Werther. There is no hero in Werther. Yevgeny Onegin, there's no hero in that opera. Manon, there is no hero in that opera. Not a clear-cut guy that comes in,
that kind of hero. No, but there are
with the curl falling on his forehead, big shoulders, or even if it's a woman. They love Cho-Cho-san. She's a hero.
She is.
Self-sacrificing. She dies so that her child could never think that she gave him up.
Absolutely.
And that's a hero. But if you don't have a clear-cut hero, our audiences tend not to like the opera.
Really?
And they won't buy tickets.
It's really interesting.
They won't buy tickets. So those three that I said happen to be three of my very favorite operas. I love them. I love Werther. I love it. If I were going to direct Werther, drugs were totally available, viable, legal. You could do anything you wanted to do in the 19th century. And my Werther would be addicted to heroin. And when he makes his first entrance, before he sings, you would be watching him shoot up.
Wow.
And then when he puts his paraphernalia back in his drawer, in the little carry case, like Sherlock Holmes, he would turn around and see that backyard and burst into song.
Yeah.
Because that song makes no sense.
Yeah.
Oh, a backyard. And he's in ecstasies over somebody's backyard. Right?
Yeah.
It just makes no sense.
Sure, of course.
But it would if he just shut up.
But that's the thing I'm talking about. When you're doing something different,
You have to justify it.
justify it quickly. Bring the audience with you. Done.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And now tell the story of Werther
That's
with
right.
him on heroin.
And his constant degradation, his constant, I don't know how he dissolves as a human being and gets so obsessed over her and needs her help and does these outrageous things that are unforgivable and wrong.
But you can totally see happening when someone's on heroin.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
yeah.
Then it makes sense.
It falls in line perfectly.
And if I had a choice, I would rename the opera Charlotte.
Yeah.
As a tenor, I object.
That's a role for you. Do you sing Charlotte?
I don't sing Charlotte, no.
I bet that would be interesting.
Huh.
The soprano already gets too many title roles, though.
No, I'll take all the title
All the
roles.
title. No, I'm just.
And she's a mezzo. Charlotte is a mezzo.
Yeah.
I've sung mezzo before.
I
I was mezzo until I was 22 years old, and then I was like, oh, well, I have some high notes too.
Yeah.
So
Well, the voice has the quality. You have this rich, warm, dark, which I greatly appreciate in a soprano. I don't know how low Charlotte goes. Anyway, you don't pay any attention to me. Nobody would hire you as a Charlotte. You're a soprano.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I can see it working out. So let's talk about this thing that we're actually supposed to be talking about. We chase rabbits. I chase rabbits. I have no mental discipline. We should be talking about Pagliacci and Nedda and Canio.
Absolutely.
And there's a little backstory here that we get when Canio is giving her a hard time about how he found her in the gutter, found her on the street.
Yeah.
How old was she when you found her on the street?
I think in this production it's very young.
Very young.
Very young.
I mean, she's in her teens for sure, but maybe not now. But he has become not only her husband, but a father figure to her. She's away from her home. He is everything she relies on for her living, for survival. He is her survival. So she will do
What she needs
to do to get by. So she's very tough. She's very resourceful. She doesn't let people push her around. But then when it comes to her husband, I mean, obviously he does push her around, and it's pretty apparent from the very beginning of the opera.
Yeah.
It does escalate, obviously. But she never thinks that he'd do something so heinous to her, like we see at the end of the opera.
Yeah.
So she puts up with things. And then finally, she starts to have these ideas of wanting to get out of there, have a different life, dreams that she thought she could never have. They just seem absurd because that's not how you survive. So
That's just not life.
That's not life. That's not the way life goes.
Yeah,
that's a romance novel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, this particular Sylvia belongs in a romance novel. That guy. Hello. He's a good-looking man. And he just won this Met audition thing.
Yeah, he
in
got
San
to
Francisco.
the next round of the Met.
Yeah. Good, great singer.
Yeah, good singer, good colleague.
Terrific man in the room. I mean, just really a great guy to in the lunchroom. I hardly, I don't bother you very much in rehearsals. I sneak in the back and watch from underneath the Tahiti thing back there.
I love that thing.
We see you walk back there every once in a while.
I try to do it very quietly.
Yeah.
I don't like to disrupt, but I do like to take the temperature of the room. That's what I'm really looking at. I can't tell what's going on really until we're finished with tech rehearsals. Maybe the last 2 tech rehearsals is when I can really figure out, okay, what is this opera really about, and what has he decided to do here?
Yeah.
But it's only really when the orchestra arrives that I would see it as a participant in the audience is going to see it.
Yeah.
So it will be at that orchestra tech when I will get a sense of, okay, this is the opera we have in our hands. Yeah. But the rest of it is just, I'm trying to figure out, is it all happy? Are people working well together? Is this a team effort? Or is somebody barking orders and somebody being less than respectful?
As in terms of our working environment? Oh,
Yeah, and it's a dream situation right now.
It's working really well. And Chuck's so great because he lets us have freedoms. He says, okay, let's do something like this, but then play over here. Figure out what you want to do. This is our, he takes our suggestions. He's open to things, but he's also very specific. And he really gets you to think about things in a different way and gives us techniques to be able to
that's brilliant.
Do that
as
well.
The first act is challenging in the fact that it's very stylized. It's very stylized, and not in negative. Usually people say that in a negative way. It's very stylized in a very meaningful way that we are really inhabiting these characters in their profession of clowns, which, as people know, go to school for this for years to actually. Now, I'm not doing backflips or anything, but there's a way they move. There's a way they interact with each other and interact with the audience, which opera singers don't do in that fashion. Otherwise, because that would look almost campy in a way.
Sure would.
Whereas clowns, if they didn't do it,
if it's not campy, you got a problem.
Yeah, so it's finding those, especially in the first act, finding those areas where Canio is Pagliacci, where he is being a clown as opposed to Canio, and putting on that mask of hiding things from an audience, where his feelings towards Nedda and everyone else around him. And whereas the second act, the beginning for them, it's very. It's extremely stylized.
It's very stylized and very tricky. Lots of choreography and moments you have to bring yourself out of the character of Colombina and show Nedda for a split second because something on stage happened that wasn't supposed to happen, and then go quickly back into Colombina again. And so it's this constant falling out of character on purpose.
A character playing a character.
Yeah. So you are in character the entire time as the opera singer, but you are falling out of character as the character on stage, the play within the play. I mean, it's like very, and then, it's very like confusing.
Yeah, then once I come on in the second, it's very interesting that I am trying to make her feel uncomfortable, which feels weird as Cooper Nolan to say, I'm sitting here, I'm trying to make Colombina, not Maria, as uncomfortable as humanly possible. Because usually I'm trying to help my fellow actors feel exactly, and just this death stare where I don't mind the silence, I don't mind this feeling of intense anxiety that I want her to feel before all hell breaks loose.
So there's already an issue between Canio and Nedda before Sylvia.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because Canio says in the beginning, if anyone looks at my wife, there's like a warning that goes out, and she's like,
Where did that
come from?
Yeah.
And obviously she's like, probably in her mind thinking, does he know something that I don't want him to know all my secret because I am having an affair with another man.
It's interesting if he suspects something, or there's several ways you can play.
I think
Does he suspect something? I think he's just a jealous person as well. I don't think he suspects anything, but the thought of something like that.
But Tonio makes sure that and he's the real Iago of this whole story.
Yes, he is. But he has more motivation than Iago. We don't know Iago's motivation. Yeah. He's just evil personified.
And
but Tonio has an issue. He's a hunchback, crippled. Oh, let's talk about this traveling troupe. Mm-hmm. We have Beppe, Antonio, and the two of you, and everyone else who has. I think the troupe is expanded in this production, but they are all supers. They don't really have a role.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you're a fairly large number of people. It's not just 4 people traveling around.
Yeah, we have 2 dancers and
some acrobat types.
Acrobat type.
There's some backflips going on in this show.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Mason's quite talented.
Yeah.
Mason Gates is amazing.
Leave the backflips to Mason, yeah.
He's incredible, really.
Yeah, what a talent.
Yeah,
What a talent.
Sing.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of these scenes that Mason does are so funny. I mean, I catch myself, I'm like, I can't laugh on stage. Okay, I have to get in the character. It's very funny, very funny. So
to watch his little aria is fantastic. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, I even kind of suggested, is there some way we can have him out there with no shirt on? But we can't work that out. So that's fun. So this is it. I always see this troupe as not doing very well and traveling from small town to small town, not going from Naples to Rome, but traveling around in Calabria, right, where people don't have any money. Is that how it feels? Are they well-to-do? Are they a thriving troupe, or are they kind of struggling along?
I would say that they're just getting by.
Yeah. I would say my feeling is that they're not they're not at the pinnacle of success, but they're very rehearsed. Yeah,
they know exactly what they're doing. They have their bits that they do every night, and they know how to change courses if something happens. Like, you have Canio walk on the stage drunk when he's not supposed to be drunk. Okay, well, let's change the scene and make it look like we're in a scene
where Canio is drunk.
You do get a sense of professionalism from just the commedia that you see. You get a real sense of that these people are very well rehearsed in what they want to accomplish.
Went to school for this.
Went to school. Clowns go to school.
I grew up, as you know, near Sarasota.
Yeah.
Ringling Brothers.
Oh yeah.
And the town that I grew up in had a lot of people. We called them carnies. They called themselves carnies, and that's where they wintered.
Yeah.
And so I grew up among, my cousin Marty married one of the flying Christianis.
Really?
Yes.
Funny. Small world.
So I grew up among people who had that sense. Even I had a friend who was killed by his own pythons. He messed with them when they were shedding.
There is no more Florida story than that.
My cousin Keith did alligator wrestling.
Yep.
He did it.
Oh my gosh.
When he was very young, he did alligator wrestling. So, but at any rate, there is a completely different life inside the show world. They are there. They have their own vocabulary. They have their own jargon. They have their own expectations of who will do what and how they will do it, and a great sense of loyalty, and that they owe everybody in the group. There's a real sense of caring for one another.
Yeah. It's very personal. It's very much like opera singers. You're giving your best every show, every rehearsal.
There are some tricky relationships between Nedda and Tonio. She's been with him for many years, like traveling in this troupe, but she does not like him. No. Everything about him just irks her to the bone, but she's very condescending to him. She treats him bad. And he's in love with her. He's just enamored with her, and that's kind of what makes him go haywire. But then Beppe and Nedda have a great relationship. They are the two most stable characters that make their show work.
Yeah, they're sort of the gravity center.
Absolutely. They're the ones who are, okay, there's something going wrong. Tonio's going haywire. Canio is losing his mind. Okay, we need to fix this situation. So they are definitely the teammates, like the real team.
Beppe is always the guy who's thinking of the show first.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's
anything that's getting in the way of the show. Beppe steps in and says, "Wait a minute, we have a show to do," and he's consistent with that.
Yeah. And this show is no different, where you really see Beppe as being the corral making sure everyone is where they need to be, and making sure Canio's not drinking, or
making sure Nedda's okay, and she's not gonna,
trying to keep Tonio out of Nedda's hair. He's got a lot of work.
A lot of hats to wear.
And it's astonishing how much Leoncavallo has crammed into this little opera. Because it's just 2 acts.
It is action-packed.
Yeah.
And, going in, learning this role, I thought, oh, it's such a short opera. So this isn't like, I've sung things much longer than this, And I'm like exhausted at the end. It's just nonstop driving. I feel like a rag doll being thrown between man to man to man to man. And then I have a huge scene with Tonio. And then all of a sudden I hear Nedda, and I'm like, oh no, here comes Sylvia. Now I gotta go again. And it's like this big,
yeah, you don't have the easiest.
There's no downtime.
It's a wonderful role.
It is a great role. I love it. Role. Absolutely. It's been a blast.
Leoncavallo, it's such a mystery to me. He wrote 11 operas, 10 operettas. He has 2 symphonic poems for solo voice and orchestra, and a gazillion songs. We know one of the songs, Mattinata, and nothing else that I've ever heard of anyway.
Yeah.
And I only know about his La Boheme. I hear it's not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, have you seen the Lillian Gish silent film of La Boheme?
I have not.
Think so,
no.
Find
that.
Lillian Gish.
Lillian Gish. When Hollywood bought her from New York and convinced her to come out, it was her first day at the studio, and they were taking her through all the sound studios because she was coming not just as an actress but also as a producer.
Really?
So here she arrives in L.A., and they're walking her through all these sound stages, and they're saying, well, what is the project that you would like to work on first? She said, La Boheme. And she was choosing her players, from going from cast to cast, movie to movie. She was choosing who she wanted.
Interesting.
And then when it came time to write the story, they chose moments from both the Leoncavallo and the Puccini. So you get to see a scene in the Bois de Boulogne that's not in the Puccini. And they go for a little day trip. They go out to the forest. And he's on her, man. This Rodolfo is aggressively on the make.
Really?
Yeah, he's fresh, he's fast, he's handsome, and he knows it, and he's putting pressure on her. And she runs away from him in the woods. She just runs, and she hides by a little stream, and he finds her, and he just gives her what for. How dare you? How stupid are you? Anything could happen to you out here, because it's not the little pretty park that it is today, right? It's the forest.
Yeah.
And he's all over her, and she says, "Why did you do that?" And she looks at him. She says, "Because I love you." And the look on his face. He went through 5 personas in his reaction to her. And suddenly became her protector, her gallant, her father figure, her brother, everything. It just all went all over him. At the end of the opera, she has died, and the camera is upstage of her on the bed. She dies in an alcove, but they get the camera behind that alcove. And he is seated beside the bed, and everybody's filing out. And you see them all walking past the Rodolfo. And in that moment, he takes her hand, and it does the flashback of the moment in the park. And all those looks on his face. And you're crying like you invented tears. It's just killer.
Yeah.
It's amazing what good art can do, isn't it?
Oh,
it's just amazing what people can accomplish.
And the thing that starts with Carmen is what we were talking about earlier, about the distance between the emotion itself and the viewer. And in Carmen, we step into the realm of realism, where there is no distance between what's happening, the emotion and the people. And that is going to take us from the Naturalism School in France. It's going to take us to the Verismo School in Italy. And this is the second Verismo opera. Because he saw Cavalleria, and to spite Ricordi, who was not helping him with his Chatterton and his I Medici, he locked himself in a room, wrote the libretto, set it to music, and brought it to the rival of Ricordi, Sonzogno, and handed them the recording, the composition. And Sonzogno publishes it, and it becomes a huge hit. But it was a vengeance project for him. He was stooping below his level.
Funny. To
copy this Mascagni, doing this trite stuff. And all these other 10 more operas never got off the ground. And the one that did, he never liked. He could not bow to the spirit of the time. And I guess he learned the hard way, because if he learned at all, that these things that he was hoping to do were never going to work out. But still, when he died, thousands upon thousands of people showed up for his funeral in Florence. It was a big deal. A bunch of people came out.
Really?
Yeah. So he was known,
Well known.
but we lost him. It's like the Mozart's competitors.
Salieri.
You can hardly say their names. You can hardly say who it was. Cimarosa, who ever heard of him, right? I mean, I was in Il Matrimonio Segreto in college, but that's exactly, if you're going to be in it, that's where it'll be.
Right.
And the Leoncavallo Boheme, if you're going to be singing it, you'll do it in school.
Yeah.
It's, an opera company isn't going to put it on.
No, I mean, could you imagine?
They rely on money.
Could you imagine people show up for La Boheme and they go...
Get to
No, they could... Yeah, I said, what?
I mean, not that all art doesn't deserve a place, but, we gotta...
Actually, I did a Macbeth once, and it was Bloch's Macbeth, and everyone's like, what about the Verdi Macbeth? No, this is Ernst Bloch's only opera. And it was very weird.
Oh, of all the hundreds of years of opera we have out there, and we really do have access to most of it now because there's so much scholarly research going on. I mean, music schools do have to produce students who do things. And so all this stuff ends up being available at least in university libraries, if nowhere else. I mean, but you really can get a lot of stuff that's so old. How could it even, I mean, all these Cavalli operas, and they're out there. You can do them.
I mean, it's amazing that the information that we have now, we can, and all the scholarly research that is being done on all of these different composers and finding scores of people, and the best is when people are going into their attic in somewhere in Italy or in London, and all of a sudden they pulling out these scores that and it's always people that have no idea. Like, who's this Verdi? I found something, y'all.
What it is?
You'll find a score or something like. And it happens more often than you think. It's really amazing that we are still finding these pieces that are hundreds of years old that can still teach us not just about the contemporaries of what they were thinking and the other things that were happening at the time, not just the things that made it to prosperity.
You cannot know a work unless you know it in its context.
Absolutely.
Not that that will help the audience necessarily, but you cannot know a work unless you know its context. And then you know that you have to play against the context because you know it won't come forward. But it's so much better if it's informed and you know why you're doing it. Young people often think they don't really need to know the text even, because the music speaks to them so clearly. And how sad that's...
It always starts with the text. Always starts with... That's the first thing I do when I learn a role. I read the text, and I read it over and over and over, and I make sure I know every single word that I'm singing. I speak Italian fluently, but other languages, like I have to really... make sure that I know everything. And even if it's in Italian, there's some weird ways that it's like Shakespearean Italian. I don't know. It's like all this weird old
Traviata.
Traviata.
Oh my God, that text is so goofy.
It is so bizarre. I was like, I don't know what this means. I even showed my husband's from Milan. I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, I don't know.
No, that's because
yeah,
he was trying to copy Baroque French. Yeah. In Italian, he's trying to make it
does not make
a different period, right?
Yeah.
So it's just really, I mean, doing the super titles for Traviata, that was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
it's just
I know.
a challenge. Well, I've had such a good time talking to you guys.
Yeah, this is fantastic.
We need to continue this over a plate of spaghetti.
Yeah,
absolutely. A small plate of spaghetti.
American
American.
Yeah, we can go.
Extra sauce.
That's right.
Yeah.
But not that horrible cheese that people shake.
No, we need good cheese.
Yeah. I have a dear friend who is Italian, and she sends to Italy for food.
Yeah.
Send me some Parmigiano Reggiano. Send me some prosciutto. Send me the stuff.
Oh yeah, it has to be from there. It doesn't taste the same.
And this is not at all.
And vice versa. I went over when I was living in Rome. My friends and I tried to make American Thanksgiving. And it was impossible. No. It didn't taste the same. Everything tasted like Italian food. I was like, oh, it's like the water is different. The oil, like everything is so different. You just can't do it. It's impossible.
I decided to cook breakfast for my goddaughter's family, right? So she was actually an intern here for a year.
Oh,
the year we opened to California. And so I became friends with her grandmother and her parents, and I feel very much a part of that family when I'm there, and often I stay with them. They live in Brittany, so I'll travel from Paris to Brittany to spend a week with those people. And I decided I needed to make them an American breakfast. So we brought pancake mix, we brought all these things, but not bacon.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, they don't have it.
They don't have bacon.
They don't have bacon. They have they have completely other cuts of pork that you can cook them, but they're not bacon. But they do have maple syrup.
Oh.
Maple syrup. So I'm over there making pancakes and broiling bacon and doing all this stuff, and I turn around and look, and the whole family is there pouring glasses of wine around the table and said, "Oh no, that's no coffee. You can't have wine."
Yeah.
Oh, don't be silly. They're having wine with their pancakes and syrup. Ugh.
That sounds pretty gross, actually.
To each their own. To each their own.
That's true. Well, I'm so delighted that you were able to join me. Thank you for coming in so early. I know that this is a tad early in the day when you have work to do. But
no, this is fine.
It's such a pleasure.
Early, so it's okay.
Yeah, I know. People say when you work from 2 to 10. It's hard to fall asleep.
You don't sleep. I sleep like 3 hours a night. Yeah, it's your brain is going.
Because you're still getting up, but you're so riled up. Especially last night, we just finished the second act. So, I mean, it takes hours to cool. Even from rehearsing that, it takes hours just to cool down from that kind of activity and the emotional endeavor.
Yeah.
A long time ago, really a long time ago, 30 years ago, we did our first Pagliacci, and Lillian Grow directed it. Have you ever worked with her?
I haven't, no.
She works a lot for like Virginia, Des Moines. She works around. But she's an award-winning playwright. She's an actress herself, and she's a wonderful opera director, very detailed. And she did this, we did it in the 40s, because she wanted to make certain that everybody knew that Canio was going to die for this. Because she's from South America, where men don't die for killing their wives. And that was a big deal to her. And so she wanted to make sure that the audience would know he's going to die for this. And so it was done in the 40s. I can't remember if they were black shirts or brown shirts, but those Mussolini guys. And it was on the back of a flatbed truck, right? Backed up a flatbed truck and put the setup on that. And when he killed her, he had thrown her down on the face up on that flatbed truck, and her head was over the edge of the truck, and he broke her neck.
Oh!
And when he broke her neck, the Sylvia screamed and ran, and he said, "You!" and leaped off the truck. He was saving the knife, for that moment and leaped off the truck and landed on him and shoved a knife into him as he came down. But Silvio was a black shirt. So there was no way he was going to get out of a crime of passion because he had killed one of Mussolini's own soldiers. So there was no way out. He was definitely going to die.
Yeah.
The audience could see that. I don't know how this ends, and let's not tell.
We're not going to tell.
We won't say anything.
We won't say.
I'm so delighted we're doing it by itself.
It's interesting, yeah. I mean, but why not?
I think it's the main event.
Well,
Yeah.
it's such a powerful piece, and oftentimes when you see it double billed, they try to make it they try to tie in everything with it's the same people or the different story, or same stories, but like with different characters, and it's such a powerful work on its own. It really can stand on its own so easily. I understand the you want to get more opera into the night, so I get the.
But this is very action packed, so you're gonna feel like
always
there's
walk
a
out
lot
drained
of
from
it's
Pagliacci.
a draining show,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it rises up. And I used to get letters. We would be I was the marketing director for years and years, like 18 years. And we would be doing Pagliacci, but we'd always do it with something like La Voix Humaine, or some short thing that's a small cast, some little thing.
Yeah.
And I would get all these letters because they would have to sit through that and then have an
they're
intermission,
waiting
and
to
then come to see Pagliacci and to get all these letters. Why did you make me sit through that horrible thing? I only wanted to see Pagliacci. So I thought, well, we're going to do Pagliacci, so why don't we just do it alone? Because San Francisco's doing it with Cavalleria. We can't afford to cast Cavalleria and Pagliacci.
Yeah.
Because there's no crossover between
No,
those
it's-
casts.
Yeah, you
There's
have
no
to have-
crossover. It's a completely second cast. And it's not as strong a work.
No, it's not.
It's not a
just
bad
not.
work, but it's not as strong as
No,
Pagliacci.
no.
Pagliacci is a unique in all of Verismo opera. It is unique. Well, maybe if Tosca qualifies.
Yeah, of course. If we're gonna.
The second act of Tosca.
Yeah. Oh.
is right up there.
Yeah.
It's just right up there.
But there's no mistake in the musical qualities of this for the Puccini. It's just a different.
It's a whole different creature.
Yeah.
But I thought it would just be brilliant just to do it by itself.
Yeah.
And Americans, companies across the nation are commissioning shorter works, 90-minute works. I've sat through many of these new things that are based on a movie, right? And I thought, well, Pagliacci's just ready-made, and it is being done alone across the nation. So we'll do it by itself. We'll just do it by itself. And now I've got all this hate mail of people saying, "What? You're doing Pagliacci by itself? We want to see Cavalleria." And I have to write back and say, "Oh, please be aware, San Francisco Opera is doing the pair."
Well, hopefully they will be pleasantly surprised when they see how great this show is going to be when they come to see it.
I have great
It's just
faith.
It's just such a great evening to come in. You see one of the best shows in the repertoire. People bow, people clap, and you can go home. And
And you're home before 11.
and you're home before
Yeah.
11.
Absolutely.
Especially for I also find it a crime sometimes that we pair this show in particular with other things, especially shows that aren't as good, because it's the perfect new person show. There is no better. People say Carmen. Carmen is long.
Carmen is not the perfect new person show. Boheme is a good new person.
Boheme is good. It's a great new person show.
Boheme is like perfectly paced. It's only 2.5 hours.
It's also short,
Yeah. But this is even
this
shorter.
is even shorter.
And
People recognize some of the music. You have
Ridi Pagliacci.
I mean,
everybody knows that.
Everybody even
No more Rice Krispies.
That's right.
That's true. But it's such a great evening for people to come in, experience one of the great masterpieces, and it's not highfalutin. You don't feel like I'm going for a lesson. I'm not going
For a history lesson.
I'm not going for a history lesson. I'm going to see a show.
Yeah.
And we got a show, y'all.
Drama.
This is a show.
Drama, passion, funny.
Yeah.
Death.
This is a show that it's a
So
show.
there you go.
It's a show with some great music and great singing, and you're not in for.
It's action packed. That's for
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
this whole point of Verismo opera is to remove the barrier
Yeah, there is no barrier.
So the distance between the viewer and the emotion.
You're right here.
It's gone.
Absolutely.
It's like folded time. It hits you when it happens, and it's not asking you to think about something. It's not actually asking you to consider a point of view. It's just handing you. This is life. And he says it, what? Un squarcio di vita, a slice
of life.
And that's exactly what it is. He just lived up. I'm so sorry for Leoncavallo that he didn't understand his own period. He was hanging on to the pre-Raphaelites. He's hanging on to the period before.
Did he write? Who wrote Fritz?
L'amico Fritz. I think Mascagni.
Mascagni.
Yeah.
But it's those people. It's that same kind of. Mascagni wrote Cavalleria, and then people said, "Oh, anybody could have wrote that." It was because anybody who had that libretto would have been great. So he went out of his way. He said, "I'm going to write L'amico Fritz just to prove people wrong." He didn't. But people, they some of these guys, they didn't want to just do the thing that the audience appreciates. So when they just deign themselves, it's like with Strauss and the Italian tenor. Like, he was just the Italian tenor is just Strauss going, this stupid Italian music, and of course everybody loves it. Everybody loves it, and it's him
making fun of it,
and
doing a parody, and everybody happened to think it's real.
Yep.
Well, Strauss is really one of those guys. I will never become intimately knowledgeable about Strauss because we can't do it. The only thing we could do is Ariadne auf Naxos. And I think that's a bit of a dog's breakfast. I've never learned to like that thing.
Really?
Yeah, I've never learned to like it. But Ägyptische Helene, Capriccio, these things you get to see if you go somewhere else. Like Santa Fe, they're always going to do something with Strauss. Frau ohne Schatten. Well, that was one of Irene's big roles. She was the nurse in Frau ohne Schatten. I heard Leonie Riesenig sing that thing. That high D that starts unaccompanied pianissimo and grows to fortissimo, unaccompanied. You just sit there going, "What am I hearing?"
Yeah, that's another dimension.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of what people are capable of.
Yeah. It's a good work.
Yeah.
But Electra.
Oh.
Man.
What a show.
That's something. Have you seen the film starring Leonie Riesenig as Electra?
Yes.
Oh my. Oh my, if you haven't seen that, get your hands on that.
I have.
It's just, that's something. With her hands reaching across those bloody cobblestones as she sings Agamemnon. Jeez.
Great.
And the dancing at the end in the rain.
Yeah.
Like it should be staged. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
No, they can say what they liked about Richard Strauss. I think the guy was smart. You can't write Ich habe da den Mund geküsst if you're not smart.
Right.
If you're not smart.
I mean, he was we're getting way off topic here.
Yeah,
Somehow we went from Pagliacci to Strauss.
Since my mother died, nobody listens to this. So we can do what we want to do.
What was I going to say? No, but to go from these titans from different completely, you don't seem to think of Mascagni and Strauss in the same, but it's amazing how the human element of all of it kind of ties them together and we've all of a sudden have people putting notes on a page, doing the same thing, and to drive these different elements of the human psyche onto a stage and really have a in-depth experience from two separate points of view that couldn't be further apart, and two cultures that are completely further apart, and people who can muster those into 300 pages on a score.
The creativity thing, there's no answer for that, is there?
No.
And the ones that, as we were talking earlier, the interpreters of the piece have so much influence over the experience of the audience, and all it takes is, Domingo and Borodina were on stage doing Oh, come on, Larry. Delilah and what's his name?
Samson.
Samson. There you go. Samson and Delilah. And it just, fine. Okay, they did it. Long ballet. A year later, I'm seeing Denise Graves and Jose Cura. He said, we're going to watch her get pregnant right here. It was just like, oh my God. It was a completely different experience.
If people have like a connection, like stage chemistry is a real thing, you know? Some people you just don't connect with up on stage, and you just, and the audience can tell.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it doesn't work. There was a Rigoletto at the Met that the baritone and the soprano physically didn't like each other, and he really disliked her as a person. He never looked at her.
Yeah, you can see it. You can tell.
He wouldn't look at her.
People don't have to. This is an odd thing to say. You have to be professional about it. In any workplace, there's people you don't like to work with. But I've worked with people who actively did not like each other, and they put on great shows because you have to be professional about it. You can't take that away from the audience.
Still like
That's exactly.
You can't take that away from the audience.
Because I was there with
That's not
25
fair.
people that I brought from San Jose, and they just saw Rigoletto, and it didn't work, and people hadn't seen it before, and they were kind of me, why does everybody like this opera? I said, oh gosh, guys. And then I found later that there was a problem between the two artists. And well, as you say, it's live theater.
Yeah.
There are no second takes.
No.
Yeah.
None.
And things go wrong on stage, and you just got to make the best of it, you know?
Sometimes your tenor comes in drunk.
That's right. That's right.
Hopefully not
A real story I had, my tenor, last Traviata I did, the Baron broke his nose on stage, and we were like, great. That's live theater. It was like backstage and blood
I'm pretty sure the tenor wasn't going, great, that's live theater.
He finished it though, you know. He went because it was just like this bottom part, but it wasn't the top bridge or anything like that, so he was able to sing, got the bleeding to stop, and show went on. And he sounded beautiful.
Right to the end.
Right to the end.
Didn't have to fake the tears.
Nope, absolutely not.
Could you imagine? I could just imagine so the curtain closes, you know, and the curtain is just like, the anger, like, because you're on stage and this internal, you put it out of your mind, and you're like, you broke my nose!
This is why fight calls are very important.
Oh, right here, Villa Montalvo, San Francisco Opera's touring company. They used to call them, Western Opera Theater or something. Their first stop is always the Villa Montalvo, used to be. And they were doing Don Giovanni. First scene, the commendatore didn't duck far enough. And he got sliced. The whole top of his forehead was sliced open.
Oh, God.
And his back was to the audience, and he went, oh, God, you know. And when he looked up, his whole face was covered with blood, and a guy in the second row had a heart attack.
Oh, my God.
So everything was stopped dead. The cover was brought in for the commendatore, but everything was delayed for half an hour while the ambulance came and carried this poor person who had a heart attack away to the hospital, and then they were able to start over.
Stage safety.
But you just really have to, those fight calls are real.
Oh, even what we do in this show, I mean, I am constantly like going, okay guys, can we do this over again? Because I'm the one being thrown everywhere in every direction. So it's like very, you know, you have to be very controlled about the whole situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and make it look real, but it's
it better
not
be
real. Yeah.
Well, and as the tenor,
keep the bruises off, though.
No,
I cover the bruises, but
I'm always, as the tenor, you're always very. I don't know how many people I've stabbed at this point. So it's you get every time you have to have contact with your onstage partner, and you have to make sure every time after every rehearsal, how did that feel?
Yeah,
was it different? Okay? Was it okay? Because especially during the rehearsal process, where you are getting in the midst of it, it has to become not routine, but everyone has to know exactly when things are happening. So when you get to the show, the stab happens. She knows when to expect it. I know when that I'm supposed to have a hand up here or somewhere else, because someone can come behind you. So those things need to be automatic. Because, and of course, it always happens at the end of the show. Nobody dies in the first 10 minutes. So you're at the end of the show when you're exhausted. So that's when just the absolute rote has to be rote. Because if it's not, that's when bad things can happen.
So let's cross ourselves.
There you go.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
We lost the audience an hour ago, but that's okay. We had a good
If you're
time.
still here, thank you. Come to the show.
Come to the
Yes,
show.
and come see
Well,
Pagliacci.
if you're still here, you were definitely coming to the show anyway, right?
Okay, guys. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.